Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. This one's going to be all about the San Diego Comic-Con Avatar publishing panel that happened pretty late last night. That's why I'm covering it the next day here. It was like 4 a.m. by the time it kind of wrapped up, and it was just too late to record a video. I also wanted to wait and see if officially they posted any of the news that actually came out of it. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing any of it right now, so unless they post it later, the coverage from the panel has not been great from an official capacity. Fan stuff, great as usual, but we shouldn't have to rely on fans in the room to get the information out of the room. So, we'll just jump straight in here with this. So, before the panel even started, of course, this usually happens. The stuff that is super official, going up through listings, happens before the panel. So, we got the cover for Awakening of Roku, Chronicles of the Avatar Book 6. This is Roku Book 2. The release date is confirmed to be December 30th, 2025. I'll show you the details about that in a second. This is not a placeholder date. This is actually the official release date of the book. It is a Tuesday. They're obviously just positioning this as they gave the summer date, the July date, to City of Echoes, and now Chronicles of the Avatar has been moved to this kind of winter slot, I guess. We'll see how it goes with ongoing books, but I'm guessing the idea is that this will be the plan going forward, is one release in the summer in July, and then the Chronicles book will be the December release. So next year we'll see, I guess, Legacy Book 2, whoever that's about, in July, and probably Karuk Book 1. That is not confirmed, but we assume it to be the case, in December next year. But we'll see what happens. No description just yet. They mentioned a little bit of a teaser description for it at the panel. We'll get to it in a moment. But let's talk about the cover, because we have it clear and clean here to talk about. The detail that I think is important to note about the cover from the panel is that there is a 3-year time skip between the last book and this one. So Roku, I guess, will now be 19 because he was 16 in the first book. Gyatso, they never gave us his age, but they said he was a couple of years younger than Roku, who again was 16. So we assume Gyatso was probably 12 or 13 in the first book, so now he is probably 15 or 16 in this book. And I think that kind of makes sense overall. So they're probably going for maybe some sort of an idea here where, yeah, Gyatso is maybe 16 and Roku is maybe 19 or 20. That's probably sort of the idea we're approaching here. Notably, Gyatso has his arrow tattoos now, so in the time skip he has got his arrow tattoos. In the first book he didn't have them, though he was on the trajectory to get them quite early. They even made the note at one point in the book that he was on the pathway to get his tattoos by the time he was Roku's age, so by 16. It seems like he's now actually kind of accomplished that, which is kind of interesting. And then Roku, he was bald at the end of the last book because he finally shaved his head for the airbending training. But obviously 3 years later his hair has grown back. We assume they're both basically master airbenders at this point. Gyatso certainly is, and Roku should be there basically as well, because after 3 years he's basically going into the final year he's going to be spending on the air part of his journey, because we know he spends 12 years doing his avatar training. So we assume it's 4 years with the air nomads, 4 years with the water tribes, 4 years with the Earth Kingdom. So it might be a thing where what's actually happening here as we start the book is that it's Roku moving on from his airbending training to kind of start his water bending training by going to the Northern Water Tribes. So, I think perhaps stuff like him meeting Taugakak for the first time might be on the table here, but we'll have to wait and see. Notably, in the art, you can see here he's not wearing the Crown Prince artifact. I don't immediately jump to take this to be an art error. I think purposefully he's probably not wearing it just because it's early on in his Avatar career. And especially if he's theoretically interacting with other world leaders, I don't think they want the Avatar walking into that meeting wearing a royal artifact from his home nation. So this is probably a strategic thing, just for his reputation as the Avatar early on here. So I think that makes sense. But yeah, the art I think is so nice. Every time I've looked at this over the last day that it's been up, it's just a very striking image. These covers I do think work really well where you have multiple characters on it and it's not just the one main character on the front. I get why they do that for the debut book because it's like the origin story, but I do like the dynamism of two characters being on the front here. Like, look at that face from Gyatso there. It's like perfect to get him across, especially the way he was written and presented in the first book. But that's that. Also, before the panel, we did get the reveal for the cover for I Am Sokka from listings. Not much to say about this. It's the 5th I Am book after Aang, Zuko, Katara, and Toph. Mostly, I think with this, it's like, who did they do next? Did they do Korra? Or did they do another Avatar character? What's going on here? January 6th is when this book comes out. But yeah, let's get into the panel here. Once again, like I said, no official coverage that I can see. I haven't seen anything that Dark Horse has posted themselves, Abrams, any of the publishers have posted anything. There was news, we'll get to it. Actually, some relatively big news. But because it was more of a sneak peek style thing, they didn't publicly post it, meaning the only thread of information out of the panel we have is this one here from Obi Gaming Oblivion on Twitter. So major thanks to Obi for, reporting throughout the whole panel, detailed kind of quotes and pictures of what was going on throughout the panel. So always unfortunate when it's a situation where if one fan didn't do this for the rest of the fan base, we would not know what happened in this panel. I assume it would have eventually come out that, hey, they announced the next Korra comic and, here's the comic miniseries, which we'll get to. But it's always a little bit rough when they're just like, where was the official coverage of this? Because, you promote the panel and then silence. Is this secret information? I don't understand the way they do some of this sometimes. But anyway, the panelists were Cara O'Neill as the moderator, Joan Hilty from Avatar Studios, Ryan Lee from Webtoon, Randy Rabai, Roku Novel, and Judy Lin for City of Echoes. So notably, no Magpie representative here. And also, it probably should be noted, there really wasn't much from Webtoons here, at all. They mentioned the other panels, notably, of course, the merchandise panel, which they framed as being a Magic the Gathering and Jazzwares Avatar panel, which is actually quite exciting. I assume there'll probably be some other stuff, but yeah, Magic and Jazzwares are the focus, absolutely, for the next panel. And then, yeah, a lot of the early stuff is just Randy Rabai talking about the writing process on Reckoning of Roku, Judy Lin talking about her process on City of Echoes. They then announced Awakening of Roku, of course, the cover. You've already seen that here. But here's the description we have. Takes place 3 years later, so that's where this came from. They discover a mysterious illness on their way to the capital and stop it before it stops the Northern Water Tribe's way of life. So interesting here, a kind of plague, disease, illness plot affecting the Northern Water Tribe. Their way of life, that's an interesting wording because they often say that about the Northern Water Tribe when it comes to the way of life is based around the ocean and the moon spirits and stuff like that. So is it a spiritual illness or plague in some way? That would be interesting. That would definitely prompt the Avatar to need to step in if there is a spiritual aspect to this. That could be very interesting. It does make me wonder, is that the entire plot of the book? Is it just, we're in the Northern Water Tribe, we're doing stuff here, that's the focus? That could be very, very cool, ultimately, because, this is where Roku does his waterbending training, so I'm wondering, is this, when they say on their way to the capital, is that on their way to Agna-Kela? Is it Roku, maybe beginning to move on to the next stage of his journey? Because, it's 3 years, and then you account for a couple of weeks, months for the first book as well, so it would maybe make sense, but we'll see what they do here. Again, this is where, please just put the information out publicly, that sort of thing. So there's that. So that's all the Awakening of Roku information. We're really, like I said, just waiting for the full description to go up online. Yeah, just, again, more process stuff about what's going on there, the themes of City of Echoes. Webtoons, they just kind of highlight that, look, there is a bit of a process for actually converting the comics into that digital vertical format, which is fine. This is probably the most notable Webtoons thing, just to really highlight that, it does really well on that platform. The book's being available for free, and just how much popularity there is. It is one of their best series on the entire platform. That's really good to know, just for the popularity of Avatar, and specifically Avatar Publishing, so that's nice to know. Legend of Korra is coming to Webtoons. I guess they didn't announce the date yet, which that's a weird one if they didn't actually say what the date was. But anyway, Voyage of the Unity was mentioned, one of the few Magpie references. The only other Magpie reference is just that, hey, they gave the RPG the Avatar Legends titling because it covers the history of the Avatar world. Seems like they made some comment about like what specifically the Avatar Legends kind of branding means, maybe to cover past stories in the world. It's interesting because, of course, Avatar Legends City of Echoes is a thing and it's ATLA, so it's not exactly the full-on past. I do always just take Avatar Legends to just be anything under this can cover multiple eras. That's the very simple way I view Avatar Legends, is that the eras that you don't see covered too often, like, you know, Szeto, Yang Chen, Kyoshi, are covered in addition to the main stuff when required for like extra content like City of Echoes. They did some baking book stuff. This one's not too far away. It's out in September, so there's not much need to talk about stuff here. They did mention this idea that like it is more focused on the food. It's not an in-universe book like the original cookbook. So the baking book is more, it's just directly about the food and sort of like fan-made food rather than trying to make it like authentic Fire Nation food. It's just inspired by stuff. So I think that takes a little bit of the interest away from it for me, but, you know, it's there if people want it. They showed how to draw Avatar, but that book's already out at this point in time. They showed I Am Sokka, which I showed you here. Light It Up, they actually gave some very interesting details on. It's a sports manga, I guess, anime inspiration, which makes complete sense given that it's about the National Championship Bending Tournament, in this case, Firebending Tournament, set in the new Szeto Era. So that's very cool. And there is clarification on this elsewhere. Asked Joan Hilty after the panel to reconfirm. It does indeed take place during his, so Szeto Era. This is the Avatar before Yang Chen. So we're relatively far back here. Especially for like a kid's book, it's such an interesting decision to set it in like an era we really know very little about, which is interesting. She even hinted that he may or may not show up in the book in some way. So we might actually see Mr. For Volcano exploding himself in the book. I take that to be, yeah, he's showing up, which is actually quite exciting. So yeah, we start with the Fire Nation, and then I guess the implication maybe from this is that even when they switch to another element, it'll be a different bending school during the Szeto era overall for the overall bending tournament. But we'll see what happens here. This image, I have it slightly edited so you can see it maybe a little bit better. I had to adjust the brightness and contrast, so the colors go a little bit off, but again, we know what the characters primarily look like from the cover of the book, Lighted Up, Bending Academy 1. But so yeah, here's the team. So we have Adaki, who is apparently our main character. These are all meant to be like 11-year-olds, I think, here. So we have Adaki, Ji Young, Era, and Sujun here. So that's interesting. Fascinating to see kind of how they do this overall, because again, I'll actually maybe go back here and be like, National Championship Bending Tournament. And like, okay, it's in the Fire Nation, but like, does it maybe include other bending disciplines, or is it a full-on firebending tournament? I think the description of the book says it's a firebending tournament. But yeah, again, you can see Era is missing an arm, which is an interesting detail. And then I love the framing of the older kids as like the villains here. Look at those smug expressions just because they're a couple years older. Chuan and Tehran. That's kind of a cool framing. And the designs, I think, all look pretty nice. I think this book is going to surprise people, especially because it is going to be, I suppose, a source of other regular content, because I think the plan is for these to only have like a couple of months between each book. And it is like 144 pages, I think. So it's going to be a decent chunk of content. Not as big as a full novel, but, you know, a decent amount of content. Beast of the Four Nations is, again, it's only a few weeks away. There's not too much to say about it. I think the main thing is just that I think the hype has come way down on this book from where it was before. I think the second we saw the full-on official preview pages and we see that, like, oh, Aang's narrating the whole thing, and actually most of the art is, like, black and white kind of sketchbook style on the journal kind of pages, and there's not as many of the full color images, and the book's maybe a bit shorter than we thought it was going to be. And you can see the fact that they made sure to mention, caveat immediately, it's not a comprehensive guide to every animal in the series. And it's a little bit like, I think the fact that you feel the need to say that immediately highlights that they've maybe missed the mark a little bit on this book. But I'm still excited for the release, and we'll see how it goes. I just think they made some odd creative choices surrounding what this book is, but we'll see how it is in the end. So there's that. Then we get into the big announcements. So this one here is, as you can see here, the next Korra comic. I guess they got Janet Varney in or on video to announce this. No title yet. It will be revealed soon, but it's about young Kaya, so Tenzin's sister, Aang's daughter, Aang Katara's daughter. Young Kaya exploring the world on her own for the first time. Super interesting. Like, to a certain degree, like, I was wondering, like, is something like this even on the cards for the one-shot comics? That, like, this is a notable thing. Like, we're going, like, a decent bit back here in terms of a backstory here for Kaya. And it looks like potentially the idea is that the whole book is just set when she's younger. I wonder, will they do any sort of framing device of, like, it is Kaya as we know her telling the story of her past to someone, or if it just is we jump in and it's young Kaya. Interesting. No mention of this is the problem when it comes to the Dark Horse announcements. There's like no details about any of this stuff at all. We don't know what the creative team is. There's no dates attached to any of this stuff at all. You can see by the fact like there's no logo on there. Clearly, I'm guessing this is meant to be the cover, because you can see there's space for the big Legend of Korra logo up here. There's space down here to put the title of the comic. So this is the cover, I guess. But who's the artist? Who's the creative team? Alex Monick should be the artist on this, based on the information we had about the Korra one-shot trilogy that we're working on. But I'm like, is this Alex Monick art? I don't obviously know. Just because Kaya's maybe a little bit further back, and we can't see like the face maybe with like enough detail to be like, is that her art or not? Because there obviously was production problems when it came to that Mako comic. That's why it took so long to come out. And part of the reason why maybe there's a bit of a delay for the next one is that maybe they have switched creative teams, or it's just that we've taken it takes a year and a half, 2 years to make the first book, we've got it down to maybe 1 year. We don't know what the full situation actually is. But I think it looks great. Like, it looks like we're going back to like relatively young Kaya. Like, I wonder, like, is this 16-year-old Kaya, 18, early 20s? We don't kind of know for sure. But this means that the book is set during the Aang era rather than the Korra era, which is actually quite interesting in terms of like a almost the way that this book is going to be kind of like branded. So will be interesting to see how that exactly goes. But they've done that before. Like, some of the free comics have had like flashbacks, have been primarily flashbacks to like Aang is alive type stuff. But anyway, obviously, yeah, this is reflecting on that part of Kaya's past that we know about, which is that she left to explore the world for a while and kind of wasn't really kind of connected to the family for a while. What exactly we kind of delve into here will be interesting, because there is some kind of aspects of her character that are a little bit mysterious, because when she was in the fog of lost souls, so like your darkest kind of memories and thoughts coming to the forefront, she talks to her brothers and says like, I don't know who you are, I don't have a family. It was such an interesting kind of line coming out of her, like that she doesn't want to be tied down. That's part potentially of what happens here, or is that maybe something that happens a little bit later on? I don't know. But still, very, very cool. Not just like Kaya doing something random in the present day, but like we're actually going to tell something big with her. I think that's a decent choice. Yes, there'll be some disappointment about the fact that it's not like an Asami comic, and it likely, I guess, Korra's not or at all, or maybe minorly only going to be in this book, depending on what exactly it is. But there's still the third one shot for maybe Asami to be the thing, because this definitely leaves backstory open as a bit of a theme for the overall trilogy, because they covered some of that in the Mako comic. This certainly looks like full backstory for Kaya. So Asami and her parents is definitely something they could do for the third book overall. So one to keep an eye on. What do they mean by title to be revealed soon? I take that to be it'll be revealed at New York Comic Con in October. And then I'm guessing that would put it in the sort of Ashes of the Academy kind of slot, where they revealed that comic at New York Comic Con and it came out in March. Will they be able to have that turnaround? So it's roughly a year between Korra comics. We'll see what happens, but we will move on here. Next, we have this. So we get the comic miniseries. Note, this is not Avatar one-shot comic number 7. This is the comic miniseries that they teased as part of the February anniversary press release. So this is what looks to be a new format of comic that they are doing. Again, very lacking in details, as you can see here from the final tweet here. You know, they ran out of time at the end, so they really rushed through the announcement. So they rushed through their kind of brand new stuff, and it seems like they didn't detail it like they should have. So yeah, this is a 3-issue miniseries about the Kyoshi Warriors set during the show, so set during ATLA. Every warrior will be a character and have a name. So that's the kind of idea that they're going for here, is Kyoshi Warrior 3-issue miniseries where Suki's going to be here, but we are going to also dive into the personalities and kind of characters of the rest of the team. That's kind of exciting to me, because it means like we just get to dive into what it means to be a Kyoshi Warrior and like what drives all of them, because I guess this is the whole idea of this, is the team who left with Suki, and kind of what they were doing in between their appearances kind of in the show, and I guess also during parts of Suki alone also. So that will be some interesting continuity points as well. We also have, I guess, their designs more maybe undercover or just out of uniform, out of makeup. So maybe is there a little bit of undercover stuff that's happening here, or is this more highlighting when, you know, they're doing some of that support stuff, like when we first met up with Suki in like the Serpent's Pass, you know, that sort of idea. Very cool idea. I think people love the Kyoshi Warriors, so I think this is a really cool idea for a miniseries. I do immediately have questions just with regards to like, does this mean miniseries are now something that is just on the table to do? Is this like a tester type thing? We'll see how this does and we'll do more if it does well. Or is there plans immediately to do more stuff like this, where it can just kind of like a one-shot comic, but like a little bit differently, just zoom in on something else? This also might be just a slightly different way to do the scheduling on stuff like this, because notably, they don't say what the exact format is. It's a 3-issue miniseries. But in Avatar comics, we are not used to at all getting single-issue comics. We've never really had that outside of Free Comic Book days. So when they say 3-issue miniseries, I have to assume that means 3 standard monthly comic books of 22 pages-ish each. Meaning that the whole series should be probably about 66 pages. Or is it going to be 3 maybe more feature-length comics with a little bit of a higher page count? At the very least, what this should mean is book comes out, a month later we get the second part, a month later we get the second part. So there's at least like a bit of a discussion period on this. More regular content, that's definitely what we want. But again, they didn't detail it all that much. Admittedly, you know, it's just a sneak peek. But this was mentioned in the anniversary press release as something that was kind of meant to happen this year. I guess with single issues, they could announce it and it still starts at least this year. But it looks like they're kind of pushing the official true announcement of this off until New York Comic Con, which is the more publishing focused event of the two. But it's still a little bit unfortunate that they just gave us kind of like the bare minimum, like they had to say that they had books because it's been so long. But the fact that they didn't actually give us like titles, creative teams, any sense of when they're actually coming out is unfortunate. My guess again would be that they're probably aiming for this to probably be February, March next year release, in or around that, just so it's not too long between books. And then this, just based off the anniversary press release and this, I'm assuming they at least would want to have this started by December. So maybe issue 1 in December, issue 2 January, February. But it might have been pushed into like the early part of next year. There's going to be because they're single issues, like they solicit them a little bit closer to release, whereas with graphic novels they have to kind of have them out a bit beforehand. So like the latest you see a graphic novel solicited is like 4 or 5 months beforehand, whereas with single issue comics it might only be like 3 or 2. So we have to wait and see on that. So yeah, that's the main news there. So you can see as we kind of go through that, the main information was kind of like Awakening of Roku, but again, we already had the cover already, but the minor description, we're still waiting for the full description. Surprisingly, the lighted up information of it being Szeto Era and kind of getting the names for all the characters was probably maybe one of the more significant reveals from the panel overall. Teaser for the next Korra comic, Kaya. Very cool idea, and I think this is going to actually be a very cool comic. Just because it seems like they're avoiding doing, I think, too much of the like, oh, this is just a random story with one of these characters, kind of like Katara and the Pirate Silver a little bit was. Like, that's a good book, but as one of the only comics that released in that year, you needed to do a more significant Katara story. So they're telling an important part of Kaya's life. That's good, but where's the information? Like, who's doing it? When's it coming out? I really just want to know that. That's the really disappointing kind of part here, is just that they really put out, I think, the bare minimum. It is news, so it's not like absolutely kind of disappointing, but I definitely wanted a little bit more. So yeah, that's all that. Yeah, confirmation of the Szeto Era. I specifically asked about the dates, and yes, Awakening of Roku is confirmed to be 30th of December here. You can see they had a little kind of card here at the booth to mention pre-order 12/30. So yeah, no placeholder date, it is confirmed. And yeah, no date for the new comics that they announced. So they just didn't say anything. And that's it for the panel. I had a feeling they would hold some stuff back for New York Comic Con, but I do think they may be... I think what's taken me by surprise here is just that they are not kind of organized enough to have a book kind of like ready to go sooner than I think we expected. But we'll move on. We do have some other kind of non-publishing panel information to talk about. So first of all, we have this. So they got Mike and Brian to actually talk about the Seven Havens art reveal on social media. They have music on this video, so I'm not really going to kind of properly kind of play it here, but just kind of to highlight here like what they do. They talk about it a little bit. They actually say the name of our avatar and the animal companion. So the way they say the avatar's name is Pavi, not Pavi, like Pavi. Just Pavi, almost like Pali, like apostrophe VI almost. So you're not really maybe meant to emphasize the A as much, at least in the way they said it. And then the way they say the cat monkey animal companion's name is Geet, not Jeet, Geet. So I kind of wouldn't have immediately expected that is the pronunciation, but that's what they went for. And then the other character is J, J-A-E, said like J, obviously. So I just think this is sort of notable because it's like where the conversation has definitely started. They're not being secretive about this anymore. How regular of updates are we still going to get is still going to be a little bit up in the air. But just the fact that they got them to say stuff at the panel and then they got them to record this separate video to actually talk to fans, that's great. We're finally back, it feels like. So that's super cool to know. Then a bit of a teaser for the panel that's happening later on today, which is the merchandise panel. You can see here, Merch Nation, Avatar, Toys, Games, and Action Figures panel. It's at July 26th, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time. So for me, that's at like midnight my time. So I will try to cover this one tonight, immediately afterwards, depending on what we get. It looks like what this panel is going to be Jazzwares covering their toy line, and then Wizards covering the Magic the Gathering set for Avatar. Not really heard anything else, so, but those are the two kind of big ones, because Jazzwares have a full merchandise line that's on the verge of launching that they have to detail, and then I don't think a lot of people realize how big of a deal it is that Avatar's getting a magic set. So it getting a focus at this panel is huge. Let's quickly talk about what we have here, about the teaser card that they have here. So you'll note here, they're keeping a lot of the details of the actual mechanics and card name a secret here. But it's clearly Yue as the moon spirit, I guess, just after she said goodbye to Sokka, right after it, like, she's become the moon spirit. But the significance here is that they're showing us basically like a showcase border card. This is not what all the cards are going to look like. There will, I guess, be a standard border version of this card, but this is one of the fancy versions because you can see the art goes out to the edge of the cards, and then the stuff around the actual like effect and text boxes has some really cool Avatar kind of imagery and art assets going on here. You can see with some of the water tribe symbols and swirls kind of going on here. Inside the text box, you have some of the element nation symbols here in the kind of parchment style. Looks so cool. And you can tell that like there'll be other cards in this style, and they'll switch this up for more earth-focused stuff, fire-focused stuff, air-focused stuff, depending on the card. So I'm assuming that probably will be what they do here. My guess for Magic is that they're probably going to go over the product lineup. Maybe it'll be a thing where kind of pre-orders open up to a certain degree, but they're more clear about that because we know what the products are. Show it to us. I think that would be the kind of cool thing to do here. Maybe not, maybe show... do I expect them to show that many cards here? I don't think so, because they still have their reveal stream coming up on the 12th of August, which is meant to be the main card reveal for Avatar. So I think they'll just do probably a few of them just to maybe showcase a little bit of like, hey, this is what a normal card looks like. This is a showcase. Here's like the fancy Aang that's actually like full art, foil, all this stuff, just to give a sense that like there will be a lot of art going on here. So very, very interesting stuff there. So yeah, that's cool. Then also on the merch front, they have stuff on display for Avatar Jazzwares. It's mostly the stuff that we saw at Toy Fair. The only thing I want to highlight here is just the Aang. It looks so much better than it did at Toy Fair. The Toy Fair version just had the colors all wrong. The cloth goods looked terrible. It just didn't seem in any way close to complete. It obviously was a prototype, but it looked like a prototype. This looks so much better. Finally, like accurate with basically all the colors, and the cloth goods actually look really good this time. The posability looks great. Looks like a really good Book 3 Aang figure. So I'm actually excited to see what they reveal about this toy line here, because at least with the collector's line, the only ones we know about are Book 3 Zuko, Book 3 Aang, and Book 3 Katara. They're saying there will be kind of sneak peeks and like teases, so I assume they'll tease some more characters. I would really like them to mention if they're doing Korra, but with it being the Avatar anniversary kind of event, I'm guessing they'll just maybe tease like Toph perhaps or something like that as maybe a wave 2, Toph and Sokka. But you know, there's room here because they've got so many different kind of stuff going on in their line. They've got this, they've got the gimmick figures, they've got plushes, blind box stuff, and then Magic has all their stuff to go through as well. So I think the merch panel should actually be somewhat interesting. Again, I hope there's some coverage of it because I'm actually quite excited for what they have there. Just a quick one here is that some people at Comic-Con did find this other Magic the Gathering Avatar art. So you can see here, this is the Rabaroo. Obviously, this is going to be on a Rabaroo card here. Cabbage merchants down here in the corner. Cabbages. Baby Rabaroos, looks very nice. And this is obviously referencing this scene here from Tales of Ba Sing Se, The Tale of Aang, when the animals are on the loose. Also Cabbage Merchant. So cool reference there on the card, showing that they're going deep here. It's not just the obvious stuff, they're going deep. Book 2 Earth soundtrack is also out right now on all the digital platforms. Vinyl, if you can get your hands on it. Might be a while before I get to actually doing any coverage on this, just because I have Comic-Con to cover, City of Echoes chapter analysis stuff still to do, but I'll do something on this at some point going forward. I think it's just good that this is out. We move on to when's the Book 3 soundtrack coming out, when's Korra soundtracks coming out, and then of course we assume they're going to be more on it with the soundtracks for like the movie and Seven Havens when they actually come out. Then, a bit of an odd one here, like this is an Avatar piece of news. What on earth does this mean? IGN. Robert Kirkman has told IGN that he knows who Steven Yeun plays in The Legend of Aang: The Last Airbender, but after what happened with Thunderbolts, he won't say. So it's continuing this mystery of Steven Yeun is officially attached to the Aang movie. We know he's in the movie. We don't know who he's playing yet, at all. The early speculation, realistically, is that he might be our Zuko, because, contrary to what you might see on a bunch of websites, Dante Bosco is not confirmed to be Zuko in the movie. That is just a rumor. None of the official casting stuff that they've come out with says that he is back as Zuko. So Zuko is still uncast in this movie. And again, because we know Zuko's in at least the 2023 leaked image of the movie, he's in that. Zuko's in that picture. We assume Zuko's in the movie, so someone needs to play him. Is it Steven Yeun? He seems high profile enough. Maybe. The actual article just kind of says that, like, he knows who he's playing in this, but he won't spill the beans. He told me who he's playing in it, and I was like, I wish I didn't know. I wish I didn't know. So the question here is obviously, like, can we take anything from the wording there? As in, Robert Kirkman, I don't know if he's an Avatar fan or not. I have no clue. So if Steven Yeun told him who he's playing, if it's a completely new character, does he say this? Like, if it's like a character no one possibly knows, does he say this? Or is it like, you told me you are Zuko, I wish I didn't know that, that's huge, now I have this secret, I can't tell anyone. Is that kind of what we're doing here? I don't know what to make of it. It doesn't really say anything, but hey, worth noting, they're continuing the tease of Steven Yeun is in this movie, but who is he playing? We just don't know. So yeah, that has been the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the publishing panel. What do you think about the Awakening of Roku cover? The fact that we have a 3-year time skip confirmed, some sort of a illness thing going on with the Northern Water Tribe. What are your thoughts there? Kaya is going to be our next Korra one-shot comic. And young Kaya specifically as well. We're doing a full flashback thing, it looks like. What are your thoughts there? And then the last big piece of news, of course, is this. The comic miniseries about the Kyoshi Warriors. What are your thoughts there? And also, let's not forget, maybe one of the main event pieces of news as well. Bending Academy, Light It Up, is set in the era of Avatar Szeto. What are your thoughts on the character lineup here? And just that reveal that the kids' book is in the Szeto era. That's a crazy reveal to me. That's the piece of information I'm smiling probably the most about coming out of this event, which is so funny that it's that book. The one that like most people don't even know exists is actually the one that has me secretly like the most excited. Maybe it's because it's not too far away, like it's out in November, but they're my thoughts. But let me know what you think about the news. That's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.